The year is 1996. Good news! What is it? We got the rights to J.R.R. Tolkien's The Lord of the Rings. That's great. But didn't that cost an arm and a leg? There's also bad news. What? It cost us 2 arms and 3 legs. Who did you give it to? Spielberg? Fincher? Peter Jackson, sir. Peter who? Jackson. Who? Jackson. Who's Peter Jackson? Well, he made films before. What films? Indie. Indiana Jones? Horror films, sir. What? He has made indie horror films. How successful were they? They flopped. They what? Flopped. What? 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 In which studio? Bad news. What? No studio. What? He wants to do it in New Zealand, sir. Where? New Zealand, sir. But okay, and how much will that movie cost us? 3. What? It's 3 movies, sir. You greenlit 3 movies? Well, he said he wanted to make 2, but I said he should make 3. It felt right. You what now? Well, I gave him $270 million up front. What? We're only worth $300 million. Oh, and he just fired the actor who plays the protagonist. He says he's too young to play him. Then why didn't he say so? Well, he just said so. Yeah, but why didn't he say that earlier? Well, he said it earlier. Yeah, yes, but why didn't he say that he's too young when he cast him for the role? He also wants 3,600 casts of hairy hobbit feet, which will set us back another 10 million. And the rest, of course, is history. As we all know, The Lord of the Rings was as successful as successes go. And as we all know too, Electric Boogaloo, history is written by the victors, which is why everyone outside of Rome was called a barbarian or vandal, and we still use those terms to refer to behaviors that we generally don't admire as qualities in people attending your grandfather's funeral. However, what if history was written by the victors, even in The Lord of the Rings? I mean, in the movie, it's technically Frodo who's writing the film himself. And even if you think that his constant battle with addiction would put him in the company of other great writers and qualify him for the job right away, his participation and stake in the story does make me think that he's not completely unbiased. I mean, the whole plot of The Lord of the Rings is basically a bunch of good guys go on a wholesome quest to wipe out a bunch of evil guys, who are kind of evil for the sake of evil. It ain't much, but it's honest evil. Or in other words, however, if you look through the romanticized version of the tale, written by a weed-smoking halfling that just so happens to be the hero and protagonist of the story who saves the world from evil with the help of 3 lads from his local pub, you see that there are some obvious flaws in the story. Recap time. The official version of events is that the evil Lord Sauron created a bunch of rings and gave them out to all the other races. But what they didn't know is that he basically had a mega super secret cheat code ring which he could use to rule them all. And so he did. And they didn't like that. And so they fought him. And then they won, and then the ring was lost. And then a long time later, this guy found it, and then this hobbit stole it, and then some other hobbit stole the ring from him while he went on some fever dream adventure with his CGI friends. And then, through the course of The Lord of the Rings, a committee of elves, humans, dwarves, a wizard, and a handful of hobbits decide to finally destroy the ring, and with it, Sauron's soul. Tower thing. And the other super evil races called goblins, Uruk-hai, and orcs, who live around here. They do that by throwing the ring into this very specific volcano, which erupts and destroys their country. Hooray! I mean, obviously, there's some historical romanticism going on, but even in their own version of the story, the good guys sort of failed to be the good guys. The good guys. The good guys in the story are the elves, dwarves, humans, and hobbits. They're all so nice indeed that they all hate each other based on nothing but stereotypes and racism. The elves hate the dwarves hate the elves hate the humans hate the elves, the humans hate each other, and the hobbits hate themselves. And when they all send their best fighters for the most important mission in Middle-earth, these guys decide that the best course of action would be that they send the smallest and most peaceful hobbit to do that mission for them. And 1, 2, 3 backup hobbits, in case one of them breaks down. The leader of the dwarves died while exploiting the earth for natural resources. The de facto leader of men died while trying to burn his son alive. The almost leader of men died while trying to kill a hobbit. The eventual leader of men is a war criminal who accepted the crown even though they saw in a vision that under his leadership, the world would go to shit. And the leader of the elves spends most of the 3 movies trying to prevent his daughter from interracial marriage. Generally, if there's a militaristic ethno-state made up of blonde people that see themselves as superior, they are not the good guys. Oh, and don't get me started on Gandalf. Gandalf is supposedly this 24,000-year-old all-powerful wizard being that is incomprehensibly wise and good-hearted. In reality, Gandalf is a weed bro that uses his magic powers solely to impress people a fraction of his age, rather than more noble goals like ending poverty or translating what Scottish people say.
Potpourri burglar alarm.
He's always late, even if it means that hundreds have to die, and he never admits to his mistakes. He's also extremely forgetful, to the point that when he encounters the One Ring, he has to travel to a library in a different country, only to go, "Oh, that's the One Ring. Ah. Yeah, yeah. Now that it makes sense, yeah. It is the One Ring, yeah, got it. Alright, yeah. Back to Sweden. The last couple of thousand years of history of Middle-earth revolved around this thing, and he was there when it was there, and then he just sort of forgot. When literally everyone is fighting over the ring situation, he lets the little guy take the ring to the worst place ever with absolutely no idea what he was getting into or where he was going. And in his infinite wisdom, Gandalf also decides to let him lead the way. Then Frodo picks the way, and Gandalf is like, what a terrible choice. It's like, the gall on this guy. And Frodo's like, why? And Gandalf is like, I actually don't know. This, of course, gets them into the worst case scenario, as Gandalf even forgets how to get into the place. Then he forgets which way they should go, and then he has the gall to snap at anyone who tries to question him. Oh, and then he also doesn't remember that the Balrog is there. Until it's like, right in his face. Oh, and maybe he's not a wizard after all. Maybe he's just a fighter who multiclassed into one level of wizard for some low-level magic cantrips. I mean, why would you fight with a sword, you idiot? The bad guys. The bad guys in the story are the orcs, Uruk-hai, goblins, people from the east, and the elephants. Wait, the elephants are the bad guys? Yeah, right. The orcs are always portrayed as aggressive, ugly, and deformed, whereas the elves and humans are always at the peak of their physical performance and attractiveness. Ask yourself this: have you ever seen a fat elf? Another telltale sign of history being written by the victors is that in the whole Lord of the Rings story, they never mention any orc or goblin women or children, which is awfully convenient if you want to play down your actions against them. But nobody has been more character assassinated than the evil lord himself, Sauron. Sauron was the constitutional monarch of the only non-racially segregated society in Middle-earth, Mordor. Founded on what used to be an abandoned fortress, Mordor was created with the goal of industrializing Middle-earth, and generally trying to improve the quality of life for all, because until that point, and during the reign of men, elves and dwarves, there was no sign of technological progress for a couple of thousand years. I mean, yes, the Mordor economy was not completely sustainable yet, but Sauron himself has taken it upon him to move Mordor to a 100% sustainable economy. This is evidenced by his forays into geothermal energy, as he was the one who created Mount Doom, and only for that reason. This was of course only one of the many projects that would have seen Mordor to be the first economy in Middle-earth that is 100% carbon neutral by the year 3042 of the Third Age. In a mostly infertile region of the world, he has created millions of jobs. A very diverse workplace culture with trolls, goblins, orcs, Easterlings, and many elderly people all working side by side for the noble cause of creating equality for all. I mean, they had elephants. And look how happy these guys are to work for a place they love. They also had universal healthcare.
Give him some medicine, boys!
Even for prisoners. They had safe passage for wounded men, they had peace negotiations, and a prisoner exchange program. Even through the romanticized version of the story, this interesting piece of information survived.
Looks like meat's back on the menu, boy!
Meat is back on the menu, implying two wonderful things about Mordor. A. Meat wasn't on the menu at all times. Many of the orcs were generally vegans or vegetarians, in order to save the animals and the climate, of course. and B, they were aware of what a menu is, meaning that Mordor had already moved from an agriculture-based economy to a service and hospitality economy, with things such as restaurants, barbers, bakeries, supermarkets, and many more. The Dark Lord was also a very kind craftsman, as he not only made his own jewelry, but he also gave it away to others as friendship rings. The rumors of his ring being this all-powerful tool of subjugation were of course greatly exaggerated, as the only magical thing about this ring was the friendship it represented. I mean, okay, the One Ring glows when you throw it in fire, but name me one thing made from metal that doesn't glow when you throw it in fire. Checkmate. The reason they fought Sauron was of course that they felt threatened by the technological progress and the Age of Enlightenment and reason Mordor represented. When the ring was finally stolen by Bilbo and through sheer nepotism given to Frodo, the reason they claimed the ring was magical was to divert from their clear issues with substance abuse. And then, instead of giving the ring back to the rightful owner, they do the Middle-earth equivalent of trying to give it back to the store by claiming that they lost the receipt. Not your typical hero's journey, but actually quite typical behavior you would see from your local crack addict. Overall, I think that Middle-earth could have benefited immensely from the Industrial Revolution and the subsequent economic boom and modernization through Mordor. I mean, ask yourself this: would you rather live in the Middle Ages right now, or be able to subscribe to my YouTube channel? Happy April Fools. Thank you so much, my loyal patrons, as well as all the new patrons. Ian H, Joan Greaves, who creates Microdose Fiction, you should check it out, Fear Dub H, James, Arna, Keaton, Wiffler, the Dirks family, and the story. Thank you all so much. And if you want your name to be 65th in the credits of all of my channel's videos forever, do what these lovely people did and become one of my first 100 patrons. Anyways, thank you all for watching. Have a lovely day. Before the whole War of the Rings happened, there were rumors that Mordor was set to host the Winter Olympics, showing just how much of a nice and welcoming place they are. The winner of those Olympic Games would of course become the Lord of the Rings.